Hello folks, Dr. Jim Palermo coming to you again with a brief introduction to your MELS 603 Module 6, the week of October 5th through 12th. Want to comment on some of your work in the past, want to introduce you to the content this week in school law and finance, and ask you to complete a brief assignment. So going backwards to go forwards, the school law cases, I really do enjoy your discussions, but want to make sure that I'm emphasizing certain key points, and also the way that the law, as it's finally addressed in the Supreme Court, as items become the law of the land and then are passed down to us in districts, we have to implement the law and be legal. So citing school board policy when you're not certain, or citing the policy in reference to answers to discussion questions on the law is a really good thing. In particular, I'm going back to Module 4, Teacher Rights. I was reading your responses about teacher rights and drug testing and wanted to emphasize certain things. One of the key ideas here was about pre-employment versus testing teachers who are already in the job. So far, pre-employment screening has not been allowed or is not common policy. Again, this law is changing and evolving as we speak. Our teachers and safety sensitive roles, well, many of you addressed that really pretty well, but the idea again is that some folks, perhaps custodians, bus drivers, science teachers, are in more sensitive roles and there would be a heightened need for possible testing or an infringement of that person's rights because of the type of job that they do. Can drug screening be justified without individualized suspicion? No, in most cases it cannot. So if you, prior to employment, generally speaking, school districts aren't asking for drug tests. Though that may be individualized based on your role, whether it's a safety sensitive role. Once you are employed, can you be just random screened? No. But if there's an individualized suspicion, yes. And here the courts are using the reasonable suspicion standard, not probable cause. So those are key terms that you should know and come back to. I want to praise in particular one of your colleagues, and all of you had great responses, and many of you cited school board policy. Dave Sammons did a really nice job with this, I thought, in his response to this question about drug testing. He gave his opinion, he cited the school board policy, he copied and pasted the school board policy, and in particular this part about reasonable suspicion. It's clearly stated here that if the employee, if there's a reasonable suspicion that drugs are being used, drugs and alcohol, then an employee can be tested, and they can be fired for refusing to take the test, and the use of drugs can be they can be subject to disciplinary action, including being fired. So, interesting stuff there, and thank you for participating in the discussions. Next, I want to do a follow-up to the staffing activity that was also in a discussion. I asked you to look at a middle school, 1,000 students, and in grades 6, 7, 8, and to um, translate the numbers into ADM teachers and staff it. There really wasn't much introduction there, and I'm curious to see what the responses are going to be. But here is one answer to the question, and it is here in Module 6 content. It is called the Sample Middle School ADM Staffing Form, and it's actually a real school in Wake County, and a fellow principal shared this document with me. So I thank him for that. 1,000 students, grades 6, 7, and 8, 375 in 6th grade, 7th grade at 325, 300. If you plug the formula in correctly, 23 students to one teacher. 420 MOs, or months of employment, should have been earned by those 1,000 ADM students. Here, the principal has staffed grades 6, 7, and 8 in teams of 2, 3, and 4, and come up with using 37 teachers, or 370 10-month MOs of employment. There's also a 50 MOs over here for a total of 420 earned ADM months. Everything else at this school at this particular time was either a gift from the central office, some of these year-round and teaming months, and or was a pass-through allotment of arts, CTE, counselors, special programs, teachers, and TAs. So in terms of the ADM months, here is a one way to staff the school. 2, 3, 4 teacher teams. It's up to you to be creative. The extension question, the challenge question, was about staffing PE and health, and currently the school is staffed with 5 10-month health and PE teachers. If you're thinking year-round, you could have 4 12-month teachers, each identifying or working with a track and teaching 6, 7, and 8 across all tracks, and that would save 2 months of employment. If you're not thinking year-round, then that certainly would not be an issue or a question for you. But there's a sample, just for your giggles. And I hope that was an activity that got you thinking about how to staff a school, sent you back to your principal or budget manager to find out how the school was staffed. And also, I hope that this will be a tie-in to the OMA project number 4, the OMAD, which does ask that you have your hand in the master schedule or the creation of a schedule for your school. So please do review the OMAD and see if this activity can inform your knowledge about the master schedule and the creation of the master schedule. Very, very briefly, I also want to touch on this chart of accounts. The way the money flows, the budget code numbers is all this is about. And the big idea being right here, DPI uses this chart as a way of verifying our expenditures. When the money flows from DPI to your school, they can identify what it's being spent for, whether it's being spent on a teacher or a textbook or a bus or gas, what school you're at, what district you're at, and in particular, right down to spending the money in the classroom. So there are 19 different letters in the strings, A's and B's and C's and D's. Letter A is the fund, and here is where you probably will know something or be able to say that Fund 1 is state money, Fund 2 is your local money, Fund 3 grants like Title 1, or Fund 4 capital outlay for buildings and buses and computers. Food service, and again, all that you really need to know is where, well, ask your budget manager or your principal for, can you look at the budget printout? Principals should generally get a monthly or a quarterly budget printout showing them how the funds are being spent in their school. And you should, looking at it, be able to say, this is Fund 1, and it's for this particular program and this purpose, and all the way down to your school number and where it's being used and how it's being used. So take a look at this, please, and see where your funds are being spent. But this is the uniform chart of accounts that's used throughout all public North Carolina schools. Chart of accounts. One of the big ideas this week is, unfortunately, schools grow, schools shrink. We have to add teachers, we take away teachers. One of the biggest challenges for principals and school budget managers is what to do when you're adding a teacher and you need to reorganize classes in 6th grade or 2nd grade or 9th grade English. What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? Again, a good friend and knowledgeable colleague in secondary schools created this document, and was kind enough to share it with me. He reflected and wrote about steps and processes he takes in reorganizing middle school classes and also high school classes. I'm sorry that this doesn't directly address elementary, but I think that you can draw many of the same conclusions when you're trying to split up five sections of ninth grade English or four classes of second graders. So many of the same principles apply, and I would like you to take a look at this and read over that particular handout. It's called Suggestions for Reorganizing. And then I would like you to, this is the activity that goes with. I want you to to interview a principal. And I think that most of you are based at schools and can talk to your principal. If he or she hasn't had a whole lot of experience with this and you have an opportunity to interview someone else, that's fine too. But locate and interview a principal with some experience and ask, have you ever had to reorganize after the start of the school year to respond to growth or a drop in enrollment? If they've not personally had that experience, ask what factors would you consider, and follow up with other open-ended questions to get out how they felt about that, how they reacted, how the staff reacted. So an interesting conversation, I hope. But then read the suggestions and respond, please. What surprised you, what reinforced what you already knew, and list one suggestion from the list of suggestions that you want to remember for future use. And so I want you to do that reading and then respond in the discussion, please. Other biggie for this week, the OMA. Your skip CDE was due this past week, and I'm recording ahead and reading behind, but I will be reading that if I've not already. We'll respond to you in Blackboard. Again, I like to read things in Blackboard, give you the response, and you have two chances to make a proficient grade in Blackboard. Submission number 2 takes the place of number 1. It's just wiped out. So do a good job, but I'll give you feedback, and you can make changes if you need to make those changes in your Blackboard submission of the artifacts. Finally, we're coming up to the OMA. The Organizational Management Analysis begins with a contextual analysis, Part A, structural capacity building, a piece of leading staff development for your school, assessing services for special pops, and building the schedule. I already referenced OMA-D. The evidence is to analyze the status of the school's organization and management procedures and make recommendations for improvements. This is not really an action plan so much as a word snapshot of your school. The project takes the form of a narrative report, will address sound management principles. How is the school organized? Is it an elementary, middle, high school? Is it organized in departments or teams? Are grade levels organized? Are APs aligned with grade levels? Are counselors aligned with grade levels? How's it organized? And that's Part A, and in particular, leadership. Focus on leadership in Part A. You should be addressing each of these items about planning, time scheduling practices, mentoring practices. But again, what is the school in context first? Look at the samples, if that's a help to you. But otherwise, start thinking about the OMA. I'll have more to say about the OMA-A next week, and I look forward to your submissions in Blackboard. Discussion on school prayer is coming up. Please cite case law as well as your opinion on the matter. School management. This, in closing, very quickly, we had a lot of tragedy this past week in Wake County with many auto accidents and children dying on the road, unfortunately. Does your school have a crisis plan? Where is it? Could you update it? Is there a phone tree that needs to be updated as part of the crisis plan? We haven't talked about internship activities. A crisis plan doesn't fit exactly into any of our projects, but it certainly can be a helpful thing for you to assist your principal in revising or updating the crisis plan or phone tree connected with that. That's all for this week. See you next week. Have a great one.